Oh, hello and welcome back to Making the Black Bag, and today it's going to be the strap. So going to be making the buckle fittings and the strap itself to go around the bag. So this bag, of course, it's either a crossbody bag over your shoulder style, or it can be a rucksack style, so quite versatile from that point of view. Anyway, I'll get on with making the strap. Well, there are two parts to the strap. There's essentially a shorter section which has the buckle on it that attaches to the bag at one side, and then there's a far longer section which attaches to the bag on the other side. And of course this is a bit like a standard belt. It will have the holes in it for adjustment as well. So first things first, I'm going to round off the edges. Where I'm rounding off on a long length, like the main strap, I use a little wooden fence here to hold the strap up against, and it just stops it wiggling around, and it means you get a slightly more even shave coming off. You can see you quite nice and quickly get a lovely long sliver of leather coming off. There we go. So this just makes the edges of the leather nice and rounded over, and it means if it rubs on your body you don't get a sharp edge on it. It looks a lot neater. A lot of people, when they make belts, they don't round the edges, and personally I don't think it's quite so nice. I think a nice rounded edge is more comfortable, it looks more finished. So I always like to round my belting, and it's how they used to do it on the old horse harness. There you are, get all these stringy bits coming up. I'll carry on. Now we're just going to round off the ends. So I'm back to working on the smaller little bit of strap that will take the buckle. And what I'm going to do next is put some holes in for riveting, and then rivet the buckle on one end and rivet the other end to the bag. I'm just stamping out the holes for the copper rivets. Here's the actual tongue going in, so I'm using a crew punch to make the little sort of tongue hole for the buckle pin. So the buckle pin, the buckle pin will slide through there. I'm going to also just thin off the ends, the extreme ends of these straps a little bit, so that they're not quite so bulky. So I'm just dyeing around the strap edges, very much like I did before with the edge seams of the bag. So I'm using one of the Wool daubers and applying quite a nice generous bit of black stain. And once again I'm just slicking the edges to get them nice and polished. So I'm just using my ordinary wood slicker, and you'll get quite quickly quite a nice shiny edge coming up. So I'm just getting the last of these rivets on. So this is for the main strap itself, and I'm just now cutting around its stem. And then riveting off the end. So that's the main strap attached. I'm now just going to use one of my English belt end cutters, and that's to put an end onto this strap, and it gives you a nice English point on the end. Voila. Probably see if I do that. So that's a nice end on there. I now just need to put a whole series of holes down this strap for adjustment. I'm just making the belt keepers at the moment, and I'm doing these in exactly the same way as I do in my belt films. So I just use little rivets to actually hold the keeper parts together. You could sew them, but I quite like rivets. They're very, very strong, and they're quite easy to do as well. And obviously I'm using some black rivets, so they look quite neat. So with these, they won't fit in a rivet press, but what I can do is just use the little hand tools, if I can find them on my rather cluttered workbench, and just set them down. So I'm just using these little setting tools, and you can set them quite nice and close. So that's quite nice. Those rivets there hold the keeper obviously nicely in position, and I quite like the look of all of that. I do like riveting. I'm just fitting a little tuck catch to the front of the bag, so the top part of the tuck catch simply screws on. So you mark where the little holes are. I then used a pointed awl to make two little tiny holes for the screws to go into, and then I pop the screws in. And then the other part of the tuck lock, this is one of these, it goes like that. It's quite nice actually, it's a solid brass, heavy chrome on brass one, this one. I am going to use the little back plate, so you get the centre of the front, and you can mark it using the back plate. So I know those prongs line up with the back plate, and I've tested it for where it is. It's best to take your time on this one. I'll just do a dry test fit. That's gone on very nicely actually, that tuck latch. So that's opening, closing very well. And I'm just trying out, it's seeming very good. I'm pleased with that. I'm not going to put a top handle on this one because I personally quite like the plain top. So the basic bag is there. So I'm very pleased with the way that's turned out. It's a nice bit of classy bag.